Gentleman's time has expired. This time recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Griffith, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will follow up on some comments that were made earlier and maybe even in the previous panel for some of it. I would like to say I'm going to ask you a question in a minute about that Christiansburg facility, but I do look forward to going up there and seeing it in action at some point in time, but I'm going to get you to do a little science on it for me, Mr. Krause. Before that, I'd like to say to you, Mr. Kosciuszko, thank you so much for having a facility in the 9th District of Virginia. It's doing great work there, and our biggest problem is that because it abuts a mountain, we've got to find space to expand, and I hope that it will still be in the 9th District of Virginia, but we don't have that many flat places. But anything I can do to help you all find facilities for the current facility or anything else you'd like to move to my district, I'm more than happy to do, and appreciate all the work that you're doing. Ms. McIntosh, I'd like to get a copy of the inventory or survey of the buildings on at least the house side as well. I love the windows, but I agree with Dr. Burgess. There's got to be something we can do a little more efficient than the current windows that we have. And I will confess that I like to open those windows from time to time, particularly when the weather's nice. And I'd hate to lose that, but also I understand that we got to have some energy efficiency. That being said, going back to a previous panel, I would comment that I do worry a bit about not having buildings that breathe a little bit, because then the indoor air pollution does go up, as Mr. McKinley pointed out, and so that's something we do have to put in the overall equation. Mr. Krause, coming back to you, I would ask so that you can explain it to me, because I'm not an engineer. I was a lawyer before I came to Congress. You've got a 65 kilowatt microturbine installation at the town of Christiansburg wastewater treatment plant, and you indicated in answers to questions earlier that a lot of the facilities where these are located, they use it on site. I'm trying to figure out how and they may not, but does Christiansburg use that energy on site, or do they wheel it off somewhere else?
Oh, thank you for the question, Congressman. They certainly use it on site. Wastewater treatment plants are unique in that they do a lot of water pumping. They also use the thermal energy to heat the digesters. So especially in the winter months, to keep the chemical composition and temperature correct in the digester, they use the thermal energy from their CHP system. And then the electricity is just reduces the amount of purchase power that they have from the utility, because typically they do not generate enough digester gas to supply all of their electrical requirements at a wastewater treatment plant. All
right, thank you very much. I should mention that ABB does a lot of, when I toured their facility there in Bland, I did note that they pointed out a lot of things that they were doing to keep their energy costs under control and to be very efficient at that facility. I would also have to note that I went back for, I don't know, my second or third tour to the large Volvo facility in my district, and they're doing all kinds of things. They've got a couple of windmills, they've got solar panels, they've installed passive solar in a number of places where because they are skilled at doing a lot of these things, they've actually done a lot of it themselves. But the one that I found the most interesting that I think that folks maybe want to pay attention to is that somebody on their team, they have suggestion boxes and give out rewards. Somebody on their team figured out that because they have 2,000 plus people who are captive in the factory, they all know where the drink machines are and where the snack machines are, and so they took the light bulbs out of them, and they were really surprised at how much electricity they saved. So when we're talking about efficiencies, sometimes simple things work very well in that regard. Mr. Gare, I've only got a minute left, but I was wondering if you could comment on refrigerators, since that came up earlier, because one of the things I've noticed is that while I think we all ought to have the most efficient equipment that we can have, if you've got a refrigerator that's struggling on, you might stay there if the cost is high to do something else. And a lot of the innovations I've seen have been technologically driven as opposed to energy efficiency, because I can't imagine that water and ice in the door as opposed to having to reach inside is a whole lot more efficient. Maybe it is. Can you expand on that and help me out?
Yeah, a few things. One is I agree with Mr. Elliott. The choice has expanded over the last few decades in all appliances, but I think that is market-driven and certainly not due to mandates, which by their nature restrict choice. And you're exactly right. One of the reasons these don't work that effectively or cost-effectively to reduce to reduce energy is because people sometimes hang on to their older products longer, especially if it's a big ticket item, and it's going to cost more money due to a new regulation.
And do you have any data that would indicate how much the price of a percentage-wise or otherwise, how much the price of a refrigerator has been impacted by?
I don't have it with me. There is a literature primarily in the vehicles, and when it deals with vehicles too. This is always an impact. Whenever you raise CAFE standards, you have to worry about you get a slower turnover of the fleet, and new vehicles tend to be more fuel efficient. I don't have the numbers offhand though.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Gentleman's time has expired. At this time, recognize